This webinar presents the TIES Moving Your Numbers District Practices Inventory, DPI, and District Discussion Guide. Taken together, these tools help districts improve their inclusive, instructional, and organizational leadership. Districts that use the practices that the DPI measures are effective in providing high-quality, inclusive education to all students. I am Amy Howley. I work with the University of Cincinnati's Systems Development and Improvement Center on the TIES project. What is the DPI? It's a quick assessment for measuring a district's progress toward providing high-quality instructional and organizational leadership. It's administered online through SurveyMonkey. That survey utility estimates that it will take someone about 5 minutes to complete the assessment. Of course, some people might take a little longer, but no one should have to spend more than 10 minutes to complete the online instrument. What does the DPI measure? It measures 4 sets of practices used by districts that are making progress in performance and equity. These sets of practices center around 1. Providing system-wide learning through assessment, data use, and monitoring. 2. Prioritizing the improvement of teaching and learning as the basis for a focused improvement strategy. 3. Using support and accountability structures to build system-wide capacity. And 4. Maintaining an open and collaborative culture. The following are shorthand names for these practices. Key Practice 1, Promote System-Wide Learning. Key Practice 2, Prioritize the Improvement of Teaching and Learning. Key Practice 3, Build Capacity through Support and Accountability. And Key Practice 4, Maintain a Collaborative Culture. These sets of practices were identified and clarified through several research studies, starting with the 10 Moving Your Numbers case studies. An intensive, 2-stage study then provided important evidence of the validity of the instrument. Not surprisingly, the validation study showed that the sets of practices are very similar to practices that surface in other studies of improving districts. Here are very brief descriptions of the 4 sets of practices. We'll start with Key Practice 1, Promote System-Wide Learning. This key practice involves using data well, focusing improvement strategies, involving all personnel and inquiry processes to foster professional learning, and using and monitoring the use of evidence-based practices. Next, let's think about Key Practice 2, Prioritizing the Improvement of Teaching and Learning. This key practice places teaching and learning at the heart of all improvement work. Professional learning by educators is a central vector for improving students' learning. District and school leaders function as lead learners, providing multiple opportunities for personnel to develop evidence-based practices and use them with confidence. Key Practice 3 involves building capacity through support and accountability. Sometimes this key practice is called reciprocal accountability. It involves the use of performance targets that align with focused goals and strategies, and it also depends on the deployment of ample resources to support focused improvement work. Reciprocal accountability requires districts to put their money where their mouth is. Maintaining a collaborative culture is Key Practice 4. This key practice involves both direct and symbolic affirmation of the contributions of all the diverse members of the district culture and its surrounding community. Enforcing ethical standards is part of the mix, as is caring for others. Ultimately, efforts to implement this key practice result in the establishment and maintenance of rules and norms that promote inclusion, equity, and social justice. Now that we've briefly reviewed the key practices that the inventory measures, it's time to share a little bit about how the inventory will be used. TIES will share a handout with more details, but here's the overview for Maryland districts that are receiving intensive support from the TIES project. First, the administrators in each of these districts will ask 10 district educators, including general and special educators, to complete the SurveyMonkey version of the inventory. The 10 educators who complete the instrument can be central office administrators, principals, teachers, and/or other educators, for example, related services personnel. But anyone who is asked to complete the instrument should be knowledgeable about district goals, policies, improvement strategies, and leadership practices. Then, when there are 10 surveys completed in a district, I'll average the ratings to represent the district's performance overall. I will calculate scale totals and calibrate the scales so that total scores can be compared across the 4 scales. A district profile on the 4 scales will show relative strengths and relative weaknesses. The scores can help district leaders identify the 1 or 2 domains of inclusive instructional and organizational leadership that need the most work. Improvement of the practices in these domains will improve the district's capacity to provide high-quality, inclusive education to all students. After completing the DPI and reviewing district strengths and weaknesses, district leaders can make specific plans. Another TIES tool, the MYN District Discussion Guide, can help with planning. The guide clusters sets of similar practices into categorical statements. The slide provides an illustration. It's one of the practice clusters subsumed under Key Practice 1, Promote System-Wide Learning. Based on their discussions of which practices are already strong and which need to be strengthened, district leaders can then plan to improve certain inclusive, instructional, and organizational leadership practices. TIES staff can offer guidance about ways to make such improvements, and they can provide professional development sessions and coaching to support the improvement process. Thank you for your interest in the District Practices Inventory and its companion document, the District Discussion Guide. Dr. Deborah Telfer and I are available to answer any questions you might have about these 2 tools.